Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Dakota Lasky. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. Today was like a Monday, man. Like it was
Yeah.
a Monday for sure. So it was a long day, but as we often do, I feel like multiple times I've kind of like we've got together, and I'm just like, man, today was long, and then like you talk about some Metroid, and it kind of like rejuvenates you a little bit. It boosts you, you know. So I'm looking forward to that today.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel you. There's been tons of times where I've just had days and like I just want to talk about some Metroid, like just turn my brain off to everything else for an hour or
Yes,
two, which is
yes,
very nice. And I definitely needed that. And yeah, I've felt rejuvenated lately. And then yeah, this is one of those days you need a little bit of juice, a little bit of
yeah.
rejuvenation in your life there. So yeah, I'm glad to be chit chatting with you on some Metroid.
Yeah, and man, what a week. Like it's
Mhm.
been ever since the Nintendo Direct where Prime was shadow dropped. I mean, it's been popping in the Metroid community, but even like the last week has been like awesome. Like we finally got some new icons for Nintendo Switch, and like you got to buy them or whatever with your
Finally.
yeah. Like we had like the three other M icons for like the first 6 years of the Switch's life, and you got to buy them with those gimmicky coins. But like at least there's something, right? Like there's something there. And I wasn't expecting this. I don't know. Maybe we'll let's talk about this just for a quick second. But Metroid Fusion is coming to Nintendo Switch Online. By the time everyone's listening to this, in 2 days. I kind of thought like it might be like 2 months or something like that until it arrived, but like nope, it's coming to Switch like right away, which means that you can play Metroid 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 plus Prime. Pretty awesome.
It's like the perfect system, really, for being a Metroid fan at this point. You have so many different games you can play. I'm assuming that we're going to get Zero Mission pretty soon as well,
Yes, have
which,
to.
especially with how Fusion's coming pretty soon, I'm expecting Zero Mission by the summer, the next few months, really. I could see it coming out by like June or July,
Yeah.
and just keep that Metroid hype rolling. Yeah, it's been great. 2023 is really like all of a sudden just kicked into high gear for Metroid out of really nowhere, which is always exciting.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been like just the chatter and like the buzz online. It's
The
been
memes, yeah,
oh
everyone's
it
talking.
it's been wicked. So it's it's nice because like there's not always lots to talk about or
Mhm.
celebrate. Certainly when we started this podcast, those weren't quite dark
those were
times,
dire
but
those are dire times at one point. We were really
dire is fair.
scraping
They
for the
weren't
bottom
quite
of the
like
barrel.
dark, but it was certainly dire. So
We're like a Benjamin Button podcast. We started when there was nothing to talk about, and now 150 some odd episodes later, we have a bunch of new games, ports. Like we got new Switch icons. Wow. Like we've got everything. We just didn't have anything when we first started the podcast.
yeah,
So
pretty
I'm glad
pretty
that
soon
it's
we'll
we've gotten
have
here.
Metroid Other M HD to celebrate. So
Oh, I mean, at this point, we're gonna get everything HD. I'm feeling. I'm waiting for Pinball Hunters.
now
Uh,
that would be cool.
yeah.
So yeah, it's I know that we just did a bunch of episodes on Metroid Fusion not that long ago, but hey, any chance to revisit that game, I'm all about, and I'm excited to replay it on Thursday. It's going to be awesome playing it on the Switch. But
Mhm.
today we've got more Metroid Prime Remastered content going on, and I'm excited about this because I really love doing mapping Metroids, and I feel like it's not the last two, but I've had to miss. I don't miss a lot of these podcasts, but I did miss two episodes, and two of them were mapping Metroid. So I'm excited to get going today and talk about I think one of like the great areas in the franchise, which is the Chozo Ruins from Metroid Prime. So
Mhm.
lots and lots and lots of meat on this bone. I think that this is like there's so many awesome areas in Metroid Prime that you kind of gravitate towards like the big ones first, right? Like the Findranas or the Talons or stuff like that. So I almost feel like Chozo Ruins is like a little bit of a sleeper area with like how good it actually is because I think like fundamentally
Hmm.
it's mechanically like in terms of the story, in terms of like the bosses, expansions, and we'll break all that down. But it's like a top tier Metroid area, I think. I have one thing that I think holds it back a little bit, but Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about this area because I feel like for whatever reason maybe it doesn't get a lot of love or gets overshadowed by some of the bigger areas in Prime.
That's interesting you say that because I actually feel Chozo Ruins is pretty decent. Like I think it's well rated. Actually, I don't think it's
Okay.
underrated. I think it's well respected by its peers, so to speak. Right? Like when I think of Chozo, like I feel like Chozo Ruins is an area that a lot of people remember a good portion of it. It's a very iconic area, like the entry into the plaza, like that
Hmm.
main, like first time you step in is an iconic moment of the game. It's I don't know. I think Chozo Ruins are pretty fondly remembered. I think it's I would say
You
like
know,
Phase and Mines is a more underrated
oh
area. I think personally. I think Chozo
yes.
Ruins is like such a is a very popular area. Like I think it's up there with like Town Overworld and Fendrana, really.
Quick side story, but I have a few buddies from the Zelda side that are trying out Metroid Prime for the first time, and
Mhm.
like at least a couple of them were like, "Oh my god, what is up with the phase on mines? Like this is impossible," which made me kind of smile.
Yeah,
But
it's a great area. I actually was talking with a friend and he was saying something similar and was like, yeah, Face and Mines. I'm like, let me get out of here as soon as I possibly can. The first
it's a
time I went,
gauntlet. Like
Fendrana loved it. Phase and not as much.
yeah, no, I finished my run on hard mode too, and like that was a gauntlet. Like going through the opening like stretch there where you're fighting like a
Hmm.
million pirates and stuff like that. So that was tough. Maybe I guess with Chozo Ruins, I'm really more so speaking for myself then, because I wonder if I
Okay.
underrate it. Because like when I think of like the amazing prime areas, I think of like the crashed frigate or like Fendrana and the Edge and in Fendrana. I think of like the impact rate. Like so, I
Hmm.
think of like Chozo Ruins, or maybe I should say I thought of Chozo Ruins. This is like this really functional, spectacular, but like functional way to get from like that was kind of sandwiched in between like two of my favorite areas in Metroid. So
Hmm.
replaying it in remastered, just with like the glow up that it got and like the new lighting effects, like god, it looks so awesome, and just really just kind of taking my time and whatever. I think I was just like maybe I'm speaking for myself, where I'm like this is an area like on par with some of those other areas that like I celebrate, and I know a lot of other people celebrate like those areas as well.
Hmm.
So maybe
Yeah,
that's
no,
more appropriate.
maybe you feel like it you just didn't appreciate it as much until recently.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I would have never said like I don't like Chozo Ruins. Like I like it a lot. I just
Yeah.
something about the glow up that it got just made it look even more, just like
Hmm.
wow, like this area is awesome. So yeah, so we'll kind of start. I guess we can start right now with just kind of the general layout and structure of Chozo Ruins. It's almost like it's not quite like it's not really a hub. That's really not fair to say, but you're connected to almost every single other area. I think except for Phase on Mines. I could be wrong about that, but you can get to Fendrana, you can get to Talon, you can get to Magmore. It really is like a quite a versatile little area that you can go into, and I feel like it has like very distinct like portions of it, like the east side, the west side, and like the central side, almost the same as like Fendrana with like the Edge and the Space Pirates and the maybe not as pronounced, but I feel like definitely when like I'm trekking through it, I can notice like okay, like I'm on East Chozo Ruins and like now I'm about to hit the furnace and now there's a million ghosts, or like in
Hmm.
the beginning you're just like oh yeah, like here's the giant tree room, or here's the what I mean, or like now
Hmm.
I can go into the pool where I can get to the crashed frigate or whatever. So very like mechanically diverse. I feel like Chozo Ruins is.
Yeah, Chozo Ruins definitely has utility. I actually feel like Chozo Ruins feels more like a branching network in and of itself than some other maps
Mm-hmm.
do. Like Fendrana, obviously Magmorn are a bit more squished and stretched out. Like you go from like Fendrana, like the hub area, the main area of Fendrana isn't really so much of a hub because so much goes like deeper into Fendrana towards the space pirate facilities and then
Yeah.
towards the edge. It's like all stretched out that way. And obviously Magmar Caverns just like well, a straight line. Whereas like Chozo Ruins, you kind of have that centralized point of like the plaza to like the Arboretum area, which like that big tree room, and you have the access to like okay, you can go towards like the furnace and that area towards like the Hall of Elders, or you have the area that goes towards Flagra's, arena
Yeah.
and whatnot, or you have the ruined shrine area, and it feels like a bit more of a branching like structure, though it does have that like deeper portion towards like the furnace and reflecting pool that like all the areas kind of have. It does have that more branching feel that like makes it more, I think, similar to Talon Overworld than a Fendrana Drifts. And
Yeah.
I like that about Chozo, because Chozo Ruins, because you have like all these different paths you can take, and they lead you to either other parts of Chozo Ruins or to other parts of the entire map itself. And it kind of works in tandem alongside Talon Overworld to give you all those different areas. Is either you get there from Chozo Ruins, or you just take a quick detour to Talon Overworld and then jump into the other area you need to get to.
Yeah, no, I think that's quite well said because like I think you're right. Like it doesn't feel like one big hub, but it does feel like there's certain like subsections that each kind of have their own personality or what have you inside them. So I think like Chozo Ruins is again like really like for me personally like I was replaying and maybe it was the lighting, but I was like this is like really a top tier Metroid area that I don't think gets a lot of love, and I don't know if or maybe a lot of love for me. And I don't know if I ever like really put it together for myself, like how kind of cool it was, like all those subsections of Chozo
Mm-hmm.
Ruins. So, and really, like sometimes when we do these mapping Metroids episodes, so the next thing we're going to talk about is some specific rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when we do these episodes, I'm just kind of like, what's a good room in like Chozodia or something like that? Like, what do I actually remember? And I kind of have to rack my brain, but like, I feel like
Yeah.
Chozo Ruins, I had like multiple like rooms off the
There's
top
a
of my
lot of
head.
bangers here. Yes,
Yeah.
I think Metroid Prime is really good at having those way more distinct rooms. Where I think 2D Metroids, a lot of those rooms kind of blend together, and you have
Yes.
more like sequences of rooms, if that makes sense, like areas of rooms that like come together as like a unified kind of room, so to speak, or area. Whereas Metroid Prime, I feel like each individual room is, aside from some hallways, is very distinct.
Yeah.
And then I think that also helps because of the fact in Metroid Prime the rooms are named and
I
they're
was
not
gonna
in 2D
say
Metroid,
yes.
so that helps you kind of remember and helps them kind of stand out more. But I think that effect goes a long way.
I 100% agree. I hate that 2D Metroid rooms aren't named. Like I
Yeah.
wish that they were. By the way, if anyone listening to this is reading my Metroid Fusion guide, I named a lot of rooms myself. So if you see something
If I
called
was
like
developing, I would take all
right
the time
like
to name all the rooms. Like come up with like I when I play City Skylines, I take the time to name all the individual streets
well
in
like
my town and city. It's fun. I
it
don't
gives them a
know.
personality too. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah. And
I
tells
could
you
I
what to expect
completely
in
agree.
some ways too, you know?
I yeah, I completely agree, and I think that like really like I was trying to go down the list of rooms in Chozo Ruins because like I said, I had like five off the top of my head, and I was like maybe I should try and go for like some deeper cuts or anything like that.
Mhm.
But like the really good rooms in this area like are celebrated, I think, for like such a good reason. And I guess the first room that I'll bring up is like the obvious one, but like the main plaza, which is like
Yeah.
just such like a spectacular like piece of business because like you can go in at multiple stages, you can come back and get like four different expansions there, bunch of branching pathways for you to take, kind of gets you integrated into what you can expect with like all like the war wasps and stuff like that. Lots of like just lots of like hidden little fun tunnels and in different ways that you can get in and out here. And like
Mhm.
this room really, this specific room does feel like a really well placed hub room in Chozo Ruins. And like there's just I think the thing that impresses me the most about it is like how many different like ways and combinations of items that you can use to like get expansions. Because like you come in and like you use the boost ball, and then you come back later, it's a super missile, you come back later, it's a grapple beam, and like so there's always like it feels like there's always something to do there. And then like even later in the game, it's you can fight more powerful enemies, so it's not just like you get the same kind of jobber beetles all the time either. So fantastic room.
Yeah, the main plaza I think is when the game first gives you that like first taste of like a Metroidvania experience. Because when you land in Town Overworld, like you
Mm,
kind of it's a bit linear. You're like there are some doors out of your reach, but there's not too much out of your reach, like almost like immediately at a glance. Whereas when you step into the plaza, like there's a half pipe right in front of you, you know you can't use. There's a bunch of missile expansions and energy tanks right out of reach, you know you're gonna have to get to later. And then there's a little bit of there's a missile shield right next to you on the shrine before you get there. So it immediately gives you that sense of, oh, I know I'm going to be passing through here a ton,
yes.
and it's like it's going to get high traffic, and I love that. Obviously, it looks awesome. It has that like eroded, weathered look to it of like the brick with sand with like these huge tree trunks like dug so deep into the stone, which just looks fantastic. It's like broken up the steps, which I've always thought is such a cool part of it, cool aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're diving into, by the way, half pipes, but there are, I'm sorry, rooms, specific rooms. But I want to talk about something about all of the rooms or just in general. There's a half pipe here in this room. There's actually mad half pipes in Chozo Ruins in general. I think there's at least like 4 or 5 half pipes in just the Chozo Ruins alone. Because you have the main plaza half pipe, you have the ruined shrine half pipe,
Furnace
you
half
you have the
pipe.
furnace half pipe, and you have the reflecting pool half
Yes.
pipe.
There's
I want to say
there's more because I'm pretty sure
I
there's
want
one
to
in the
say there's at
training
least,
chamber, Hall of Elders. I
yeah, like there
think.
are tons of half pipes in the Chozo Ruins, and I was replaying the game. I was like, why are there so many half pipes? We can argue about like the utility of the half pipes, right? Like why they put them there in the first place, but why so many so close by? There's even like, are they just like really into it,
Maybe those
or
Chozo like
you
to get
know,
down with like their boards, or maybe
yeah.
they're boost balling around. I don't know.
Like there's a half pipe in the middle of the plaza. The middle of the plaza. It's not off to the side, in the middle. It is the grand spectacle in the middle of the plaza, the main hub area. They must have loved it. They must have loved Tony Hawk Pro
I think that's
Skater.
the only answer is because like
Yeah.
and like one of the like little Chozos is like I stuck your missile up there. You can't get it because you can't boost high enough.
Yeah, and like what is the point of that? Like are they like putting little things here and there, just love like trying to reach these huge little, like these ledges as a challenge? I don't know.
I don't know.
But I noticed that throughout playing it again, and I'm like, well, Main Plaza also has a half pipe. It has so many elements, and like you said, it even gets you ready for war wasps and beetles and all those kind of elements that you're going to encounter throughout the rest of the ruins. It's a nice
Mhm.
taste of. It's like it's a smorgasbord.
It's a nice
It's
little
a
sampling. Yeah.
yeah, it's a sampler.
Yeah.
It's a nice Chozo sampler.
Okay, well, I
Yum.
took the first room. Do you have any rooms that you like, or do you want me to throw another at you?
Rooms specifically that I like. Well, ones that I'll always remember, the Arboretum and the Watery Hall rooms because of
Yes.
the symbol scan puzzles. I think that's like when I think of replaying Metroid Prime. That's the thing. That's the thing that I think about when I think of like, oh, I've always kind of appreciated Chozo Ruins. When I think back to like playing Metroid Prime as a kid, or like whenever I think of, oh, I'm gonna replay Metroid Prime, like I feel like the first things I think of are things I do in Chozo Ruins, like those early puzzles, those morph ball puzzles, the scan visor, sign puzzles, getting the charge beam, all that kind of stuff. Those early aspects of the game, and I love those two rooms in particular because I wish there were more scan. Not I wish maybe the scan puzzles came back maybe one more time outside of those two rooms, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they really come into
There's
play in the same way
there's one
outside of that.
in Chozo Ruins, and I can't remember the name, but there's a big spider tunnel, or I'm sorry, a spider
Oh yes,
rail,
yes,
and
yes.
you have
There's
to
a
get
big
the
spider
four.
railing at the elevator
And I can't.
shaft,
Yeah, I
right?
think you're right. I can't think of any
I think.
other past
Am I right?
that. I had those
Yeah.
on my list as well. I think that those are like, I really really like those puzzles. I would have been down to like kind of play more of those like hide and seek scan puzzles, if you will. I just think
Yeah.
that they're like really fun. One thing that I like adore about those rooms and the arboretum and specifically is like I just like, but you could say this about Chosen Ruins just in general. It's like I just love how like integrated nature feels to like
Hmm.
the structures and like the dwellings or whatever, like you would imagine that the Chozo actually got around while they were still there. I think that's like super fantastic and like very fitting with what we knew of the Chozo at the time. So yeah, those rooms are awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely love those rooms for sure.
let me throw
And
another at you. This is another obvious one,
yeah. All
but
right.
it's just an
Okay.
awesome room, and that is the Hall of Elders. And again, talk about a room with utility. Like this room, I feel like is first of all, I want to say this is your first encounter with the Chozo ghost, so you kind of got that going on in this
Hmm.
room. So you got a nice little bit of spice to start you off, but then like there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. There's probably the first missile station that you'll find in the game in this room. A bunch of different puzzles that I guess not different puzzles, but like the same puzzle, but you have to go back a couple different times and shoot the bomb
Puzzle is like
slugs.
maybe not even like the right word for
Yeah,
it, but yeah, like encounter or something.
yeah,
But
maybe
yeah.
encounter or like whatever it is you need to do. I like the fact that
Yeah.
like you can get like the 3 different rewards and they're paced out far enough that it does feel like pretty cool when you can go and actually get them. I guess like the original wave one isn't a reward so much as it's just like progression through, but you can get an energy tank pretty much right after you come back and get the artifact. And I think like just the in general, like it's just like cool. Like it's like it reminds me of playing Super Metroid and like going into the Chozo hand and him walking you down to get the gravity suit. It's just like I'm a sucker for like the Chozo statues and that kind of like I don't know imagery in the game. So I love this room. I will say I do wish that once you defeated the ghosts,
They
they
wouldn't respawn.
like immediately because like I beat all three ghosts. I left for like another room, came back like not even like maybe 3 minutes later, and like all three were back, and I was just like, oh, come on, like really. So that's the only annoying thing about this room.
Yeah, I have a bunch to say about that. I 100% agree. I love the feeling and the sight of Samus being held in the hands of a Chozo statue. It's that callback to like classic Metroid, but it's like that. It's like a heartfelt thing. It's like that one connection Samus like
Mm,
physically has to the Chozo, aside from the suits or these statues, and like that like unique connection she has when curling up into a ball into their big hands or whatever, right? Like it's a cool
yeah,
image. But I also love the contrast of the goofiness of after that moment, the statue gets up and bowls you. Like
yeah.
that it's such a like an innocent goofiness to it that's why like it doesn't feel like out of character almost because the Chozo in this game are so like benevolent and depicted that like that kind of goofy like natured like wholesomeness and like how it's depicted feels like so perfect. I've always loved that.
There's
Just
something about
this,
the animation too that's just like quite funny, where it's just like, poof, he just
yeah, it's
tosses you,
great.
and
I
then
love
you,
it. It's
if you don't
perfect.
have your spider ball activated, you just like smack and then fall right back
Yeah.
down, which is fun.
And it does make you wonder aside from that like why was this built? Like did the Chozo specifically build this for Samus? They could have because there are some like nods to like premonition and prophecy in this. But like they were like, "Oh, this is the most useful thing, not a ladder or anything. We need this like intricate morph ball cannon to blast people around the room. Staircases? What are those? Don't need those. Nothing to easily get up to the top of the room. Now we need cannons. We need ball cannons. That's what we need. I love that about them, but why does it exist? I don't know. And
I'm
finally, on the Chozo ghosts, I want to say this: I'm okay with the Chozo ghosts reappearing. For me, it's their blaring theme that replays every time you step back into the room. I'm like, oh my god! Like, thankfully, you can just run past them and just go into the next room and it ends. But I would be
yes.
okay with them reappearing if their theme didn't play again and it just like got dark and like the music didn't change. Because then I'm okay with that. Because you don't have to fight them; like you can just run by them. But it's
Yeah.
you are subjected to this blaring music every time you step into the room. Uh, that gets a bit old, especially towards like the end game where you kind of cross through these rooms like because that area you have Chozo ghosts appearing like almost every room, hallway to hallway. So like to
Pretty
have it
much.
like
Yeah.
happen over and over and over again, I don't mind avoiding them combat wise, but the music you can avoid. So I wish that was not the case.
Yeah. There's a lot of like really awesome and exceptional rooms that are awesome the first time you go through, but then yeah, towards the later part of the game, you step in and that just hits. That music hits. I do wish that like if you beat them, it's like I don't know, maybe some kind of timer or something like that. It's just like okay, 10 minutes or like whatever, and then now they
I'd be okay with
respawn
that. Yeah,
or
that'd be
whatever.
fine.
So, yeah, no, I like that. Complaint aside, one of my favorite rooms. I really like the ruined gallery and the ruined fountain. There's not like really much special about them. Like they're fairly small rooms, but like
Mm.
I don't know, something about them kind of like speaks to me almost in a way that's just like this is what life was like before before this comet hit and before kind of things changed. Like there was a nice fountain, or like this is where Chozo art went, and like there's not, like I said, there's not much to the rooms themselves, but I do like kind of like the idea of having like again, just like the Chozo ruins are like where Chozos lived, and it's not just like I don't know, it's not just like an area. It's like okay, like 100 years or 50 years ago, like this was something else and like something different and something to be celebrated, and now it's now it's ruined and I'm hiding a missile in the wall. But yeah, I like those two rooms as well. Not really much else to say about them, but
Yeah, I like those rooms because there is a bit of a disconnect because a lot of like the Chozo Ruins is like it's clear that they were occupied but not necessarily lived in, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like none of the rooms are like, oh, a Chozo slept here or ate here, you know?
Hmm.
But like you go through rooms and it's very clear that something inhabited it in one way or another. Like but what the room was used for necessarily isn't always clear. Some of the rooms are obviously it's pretty clear there was some kind of, worship, or it had some, there's a big engine in it or furnace or whatever. That's obvious what the reason is. But there are a lot of rooms where it might not be as clear what exactly the purpose was, but it's clear something was occurring there. I absolutely agree. It's not like we had any bedrooms or anything, which I think might
Yeah.
have been a bit out of place because I think that would have kind of taken away a bit of the mystique. Like I'm sure Chozo sleep, but when you kind of show them having those more intimate and like simpler like parts of their lives, I feel like it takes away from like the alienness of them that the Chozo had at the time, and still I think do to an extent. But yeah, I do like rooms like that for sure, even if they are not like the biggest and
Yeah.
most spectacle based rooms for sure.
Okay, well, let's talk about.
Oh, can I have one
Oh
more?
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, yeah. Well, first I want to just say the Flogger Arena overall is really cool. I love
That's
the
a sick
Flogger
room.
Arena. It's a sick room. But I also wanted to call out, I think just like the lighting shines in this game overall, and I think one of the best examples of this is the Ruined Nursery, which I think has like a save room
Mm.
attached to it. It has like that big tree with all the wasp like hives hanging around, and then there's a big hole in the ceiling and light like is pouring through, and you get like that nice like ray of light, like the diffused light and stuff like just kind of like hanging in the air, and then you have the glow of like the hives behind it. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It was one of the like one of the best looking rooms I think in the original, and now in this game, now in
Oh,
remastered, absolutely incredible. It's one of those rooms that makes you like as you walk through, you kind of look up and around as you move around. You know where you got to step, so you kind of like look up and around instead of at your feet or forward.
yeah.
And I've always liked that room because it's like you kind of jump, skip, and hop around it, and you fight off some wasps every once in a while, but it just looks Im- impeccable. Love
The
that room.
the lighting, like I
Mhm.
feel like in remastered and Chozo Ruins is just like God. It looks so spectacular. It actually looks almost like
Mhm.
unfathomably spectacular
For a Switch game,
for a Switch game. Yeah.
the
So
lighting goes a long way, man. Like
it
it's
really
even like
does.
in game design and movie making, like good lighting makes all the difference. It absolutely does.
And shout out. I'll throw out one more too. Shout out to the Energy Core room. Just kind of like a fun, nice
Yes.
little puzzle to get you going at the beginning of the game. A couple missiles sitting around that are easy to get. So I've always kind of appreciated that room. And there's that. Oh god, I can't remember the frog's name, but I always like
Stone
any room.
toads.
Yes, any
Stone
room that
toads.
has him, I
Yes,
like.
the stone toads that show up in multiple areas. That one room with like the morph ball bomb puzzle and all the platforms. I forget which one that's called. And then I want to say the reflecting pool. They're all hanging out on like the
Yeah.
second and third floor in front of the ice beam door and etc. And then one more room for me, by the way, the furnace. I'm gonna go back to that because I believe the furnace is the room where you have to. I want to say either super missile or power bomb the floor, and it reveals
Yes.
a half pipe, and then you get, I think, one of the coolest morph ball encounters in the game because
I
that's the
I
one
think it
where
might
you're
be
in.
the. Well,
I
the
think it's.
plasma one is pretty sick actually. The plasma beam one.
I love this puzzle, whatever you want to call it. It's the one where you're like going around. It kind of reminds me of when you're playing Super Mario Sunshine and you're climbing around the grates in that game, and you have like the different beetles on each side of the grates. And this
Mm.
one, you're like hanging on to the big like wall like track, like these wall like big like square tech spider ball tracks, and you're going around the parasites in the same kind of manner. You drop off like a big drop to catch something from like to catch one of the tracks below. Really awesome. I love that, and that leads to, I believe, a missile expansion or energy
I,
tank.
I think it's a missile. I was I
Oh,
was getting. I'm
I
pretty
think
sure it's
it's
a missile. I
I
I
think
had
it's a
that for
missile
my
expansion.
expansions. Where like I think that
Yes,
might be the best expansion in Metroid Prime actually.
I love that one. That's such a fun one. So shout outs to Furnace. That's a great room with a great sequence in it.
It very cool. And now that I'm thinking of it, like I don't know if there's an expansion that's more fun to get than that one. Maybe there is. I'd have to dive deep, but it's certainly like a top tier expansion in the game.
Mhm.
Um, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the lore of the Chosen Ruins,
Okay.
and I would really say that like this is like at the time. it's probably not probably it is the most that we'd ever learned about the Chozo just in general as beings, and like you can also. I really love, and pretty much all the Chozo lore in the game, or the bulk of it, is found in the Chozo Ruins, as you would make, it makes sense to be.
Like I
Um,
think all but four of the Chozo lore scans are in the ruins.
there's one rando in Findrana, and then there's a couple at the Artifact Temple, and yeah, I think
Yep.
other than that, it's you're pretty much there. So it really serves like a lot of masters. It does a really good job because it tells you about the Chose. I really like the one about like them ascending into like a different state of being. Like I just thought that that was like so cool and mysterious, and like just
Hmm.
it really added to the mystique of the Chozo. But like the way that they the way that they tell you the story of like the comet or the worm as they call it growing like really like hypes you up for that battle. Like it made me just like, what could this thing possibly be? And like I maybe I'm dumb, but like when I first played this game, like I was a teenager, and I didn't actually think that you were going to be fighting like Metroid Prime. I thought it was going to be something else. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh my god, the worm. So I always remembered that. I thought that was super cool. But there's like hearing hearing the prophecy about Samus, and just hearing kind of the destruction and how they sealed the worm. Really, really great job with the Chozo lore specifically in getting across like serving so many different functions and doing an
Hmm.
exceptional job of it.
Yeah, there's. I mean, I've always loved in sci-fi like the nature of like past or like ancient, like evil or like
Mm-hmm.
danger in some kind of way. And obviously, like in Metroid Prime, it's not like far in the past, but it kind of feels like it is with how like the lore entries are written. Like how the Chozo like deal with time feels like whenever this stuff is happening is almost like in an amorphous time in the past at some point. It doesn't feel like it was recent, even though it kind of was.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a lot told, almost the entire Chozo kind of story on Talon 4, aside from like the space pirate perspective, is here. They kind of give you a full like this is how we got here. We don't even know how long we've been around for. We end up here. We're vibing, we're chilling, we're getting,
We're
down
playing
with
X
nature.
Games. Yeah.
We're hanging out. Yeah, we got half pipes, like we're chilling, and then just horrible stuff. A meteor strikes, man, just like the dinosaurs, dude. Like, just you can't get away from those meteors, those dangerous meteors.
Yeah. No, it's and again, like probably the most important area in the game in terms of like giving you purpose to what you're doing, and giving you, not that you don't have purpose, but like really kind of fueling like what it is you're trying to defeat, and like giving stakes and consequences to what had happened before, and kind of
Hmm.
fueling that journey that you're going on. Because like you may not see the Chozo, but like the Samus is attached, and in a lot of ways like part Chozo herself. So I really love that. I really like. I'm a big sucker for in my sci-fi for like prophecies. Like
Hmm.
this person will come up and save us or whatever. It's low hanging fruit for me. So I love. I remember popping off so big when I heard the original. Like when I found the first Chozo lore, where it was like the entrusted one, and I was like, again, I'm like a teenager, and I'm just like, oh my god, they're talking about Samus. Yeah, yeah. So it made me feel like what I was doing was like so important, and like so like just crucial. So I really love that they did that. And then like just in and around the Chozo Ruins, like you kind of talked about, like there's just like so many cool like little knickknacks and like statues of like, and like
Hmm.
random scan statues, but it'll be like this is whoever warrior of whatever. Like the amount of detail that is packed in here, if you really want to look, is like pretty staggering.
Yeah, I think what they added with the Chozo lore answers a lot of questions, but also leaves you like kind of wondering so much more, and like leaving you with so many more questions. Like, what would they really like as individuals? And it really gives you some nice insight. It aside from like what you can see through their statues, you now kind of get like what their thinking was, what their vision was, what they were really about. And it does match up to kind of like what you would think they would be about based on their statues and how they lived on the planet. It's really cool to see that kind of like that side of them. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, like all the stuff in Prime One, like this Chozo lore like shaped my understanding almost entirely of the Chozo, because this was like the first Metroid game that really had them heavily, like that I played.
No,
I
I
played
think I
Fusion
would
at the
agree
same
with that
time
too.
too.
Like I played Super
Yeah.
Metroid first, but like it's not like you really learn anything about the Chozo in that game.
No, you don't. But it's like it's the difference from like fusion, which like almost the Chozo are almost like not even there
Right.
at all. But I played Metroid Prime and Fusion before Super, so like that was my immediate introduction to them, and that's what's always kind of given me my
Hmm.
internal like interpretation of what the Chozo are. And we were talking before the show kind of the differences between like the original scans and then like the new lore differences and like the PAL and then the trilogy releases. And I've been going through this, and there's actually a lot more kind of change than I realized, because I know remastered uses the trilogy scans,
Hmm.
but like now there's like differences in like whether or not the Chozo kind of really knew that the seed was coming before it happened. um I know there was like another scan. I don't even think that was in the original NA release. I think it was like that like specifically mentions a human potentially being the entrusted one, which I didn't know about. I was just reading
Really?
about that now. Yeah, I
That's
think it's
sweet.
called the Shining One or something. Which like I don't ever remember the Chozos naming human specifically when I originally played Metroid Prime. So, and I don't know if that was carried into trilogy or not. Like I'm actually, the more I've looked up about this, the lore in general today, I've it's actually kind of made me more confused of like what the actual lore is now and what is right and what is wrong. Like, could they really see it coming? Could they not? Like, how like what details are actually not retcon now or not? So I gotta read up more on my lore here. I gotta read up more on my lore.
Yeah.
There's a lot here.
Well, yeah, that's a. I mean, hey, it's a good opportunity to dive into some more Metroid Prime, which I'm all about. So, yeah, no, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I know that there is a bunch of like small text differences between the original and the trilogy versions. We
Hmm.
obviously have the trilogy versions up on Omega Metroid, so there might be some discrepancies there, but it does make me want to dig in and see what we could be missing, and maybe if there's a reason that it was cut or not. So,
Maybe
yeah,
we need to do like an episode on that, on like going through the differences and
cut Chozo Lore.
changes,
I'd be
or
down for that. Oh
a
yeah,
changed Chozo lore or something, or change lore between the versions and kind of like go through the definitive lore. You
yeah.
know,
I would be
I
down
don't
for that.
know.
I bet you there's a lot of meat on the bone between like all the various logs over the course of the trilogy and
Yes.
getting them to trilogy and the originals that were changed. So
Yep.
okay, well let's unless you want to talk about anything else lore wise, let's move
No,
on and
we
talk about some enemies.
let's do it.
Okay, so I feel like there are two enemies that really define the Chozo ruins, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
there's no points for guessing. Uh, so the War Wasps all
Hmm.
over the damn place. They're only it actually like almost surprised me when I read this, but like or I guess when I realized it, but like they're only in Chozo Ruins. It's just it seems so wild because it seems like you're just constantly kind of combating them in Metroid Prime. And like when you think about it, it's like, yeah, of course they're only in Chozo Ruins. Like they're obviously on Phendrana or Magmor or Phazon Mines or really even Talon. But it's like it I don't know, it just kind of surprised me because it's like God, these nests are everywhere, and like there's such a
Yeah.
prominent enemy, and of course the other enemy that would define this area, even though they appear in other areas, Chozo Ghosts, as we mentioned before, with their
Mhm.
blaring theme.
Oh yes, I love those Chozo ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the wasps. I mean, I think to me when I think of the Chozo ruins, the two iconic creatures to me are the wasps and the scarabs. I think they're called
Hmm.
the little dudes
The
that
little
like
guys
show
that
up in
swirl around in the
hallways.
pipes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're everywhere, man. They are everywhere, and I actually I'm curious from like a biological perspective, maybe what are the underlying causes for like more scarabs and wasps appearing in Chozo ruins versus like uh zoomers and
Hmm.
other kinds of creatures appearing like in Talon overworld. Like obvious there's some creatures that's obvious, like there are certain creatures appearing like in Phendrana Drifts, for example, that like would only exist there, like lava
Right.
creatures in Magmor Cavern, but like stuff that like is just a general more like land creature or whatever that isn't like a super niche. Like why? Like what are the ecological or biological reasons for the wasp not being in town overworld as often?
Maybe the
Maybe because
Chozo
it's
had
too wet.
food.
Like I don't, yeah, the wasp like went towards there
Yeah.
because it had leftovers, and I don't know, maybe it's too rainy so they can't fly around as easily in town overworld. Whereas there aren't going to be as many sap sacks in Chozo Ruins because it's not as lush and doesn't have as much like fertile soil to grow there. I don't know, like that. I think that'd be a really fascinating kind of study into like the biology of the planet and like why certain creatures appear where they do and all that. I don't know. I think that kind of stuff is fascinating.
I
But
think that would be. I
um,
think that'd be cool. I'm stalled for
yeah.
time for me. I'm actually just looking up the scan book for Scarab right now. So let's
Okay.
see.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
I
it
think
doesn't really say why they hang around Chozo Ruins so much. But I think that's the kind of stuff that I would like really be interested in seeing like detailed like in scans of creatures and
that's
stuff like
another
that.
episode we
Yeah,
gotta let's jump into the biology of Talon 4. Why not?
yeah. Hey, I'm down. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to the Chozo ghosts other than they're kind of annoying. They're kind of
I
a lot
like
annoying.
Chozo Ghosts.
I,
I think the music is what makes them annoying. I think as an
yeah,
enemy, I like fighting Chozo Ghosts. I think they're cool because they're constantly changing position. They have a unique movement to them, and once you like put the X-ray visor on, it's not like you can't track them.
the
And
X-ray
they're not
visor
like
is certainly a game changer. I will
yeah,
say
like that makes it
actually,
easy.
when I was playing remastered for the first time, I think we talked about this. I was still kind of feeling out the controls, getting used to some of the different like layouts and stuff like that. And I was in the Hall of Elders, and I was fighting the Chozo Ghost there. And I want to say I think I was pressing A instead of R to hold my beams, and so I was trying to like turn, but I couldn't because I was like already locked on and whatever. So and I couldn't move. I was holding A with the charge super or charge shot, and the of course the stick is right under that. So that I kind of beat myself up, and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. That was actually one of my like my first memories of Metroid Prime Remastered in terms of like gameplay is like, God, these Chozo ghosts. Like I thought they were kind of annoying before, but like now it's like I'm fumbling all over my controller, so now they're like really annoying. Which
I
player fault, but hey,
Yeah, I mean, once we got dual analog controls, man, I feel like aside from just like maybe a couple differences, I picked that up so quick and it feels so buttery. And then now the ghost, like, no problem, bro.
yeah,
I like it's just the music for me that ends up kind of like, all right, I don't need to fight all three of you. I'd love to, but let's do this another time.
yeah.
Um,
I think that
but
moment was actually the moment where like the controls click because I was like, I can't be holding A anymore to like charge my shots. Like it has to be the R trigger, and after that, it was never had that problem again. So yeah.
see, that's interesting. 'Cause I feel like I do if I'm going to charge something, will hold A, but if I'm going to fire rapidly, I'll use the trigger.
I'm the opposite. That is
Yeah,
interesting. I
yeah.
want to shout out one more enemy, and I'm not sure that
Okay.
this enemy shows up anywhere else in the game. He doesn't really do anything. Whatever. He's just kind of there. But the oculi and these little dudes are like the little
Yeah.
bugs that they're indestructible. They just walk around. They're basically in your way kind of enemies that you're either gonna hit with a super missile and it does absolutely nothing, or they are gonna knock you off in that room that we were talking about earlier with like the scan puzzle. I don't know why. I feel a little I feel like happy when I see these guys because like they're one of the very few enemies that doesn't try and attack you. So it's just like okay, like
They don't try to attack you, but they get in your way when you're trying
they
to
definitely do.
destroy the tower there, the sun tower,
But
which oh it puts them
so
up
I'm
on
just
my
kind of
list of
like
things I hate are those things.
oh, I like those little
Don't
guys
like
because I'm
them.
just like, all right, you don't hit me, I won't hit you. Like
They
this
don't
is
need to be
fine.
there. They can crawl somewhere else. Why do they need to crawl in that one specific place? They don't
I'll
need to
tell you
be
what I
there.
hate in that room is those plated puffers. Those are the worst because
They don't do anything. They get out.
you
They're
can't do anything to
chilling.
them, and you're trying to
What?
line up your shot, and all of a sudden you got a plated puffer hitting you in the side of the ear, and you're like,
Those
ah,
you just clear them immediately. That is you have complete opposite. No, the oculi are annoying. Those make you
no,
have to line up your shot. The plated puffers are minding their own business. They're not hurting anybody. You
no,
let
they're
them
floating
chill.
around, they're dropping poison when you blow them up. Those oculi,
Don't hold your breath.
they're getting exercise. Let us know if you're
I
team
don't know.
oculi or team puffer if you're listening to this.
I'm a puff guy.
Uh,
I'm a puffer.
team Octo. Okay, I don't have any more enemies that I want to shout out. Do you have
I
anyone?
well first I want to say I think this is the first major appearance of the Reapers.
Yeah,
The big the tentacle dudes that come out of the wall, which I absolutely hate, and they're Aqua Reaper cousins. So shout outs to them. They are introduced into the game and have knocked me off tons of times, and I hate them. I don't hate them. Hate's a strong word. I very much super significantly dislike them
they're
as
annoying. They're
individuals.
annoying little
They
dudes.
are.
Yeah.
And then when you said oculi, I thought you were going to say a different enemy. The what are those things called? The wall eye things that shoot
Oh,
lasers.
they're literally called like Ion.
Ion, that's what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those have always fascinated me because how do they come into existence? Either
Yeah.
they're a natural creature, well, either they're a Chozo security feature, which what I think that are, is that what they are? What are they
You
exactly?
know what? Well, their eyes that shoot lasers
I know
at
what they
you.
are literally, but like what does it say for their lore? Because like either they're a Chozo security thing or they're a natural creature
No,
that.
they are an immobile, sorry, organism entirely composed of ocular tissue. So
So
there you
like
go.
how does an organism evolve to become an eye stuck to a wall that shoots lasers? Has no other. It doesn't have a reproductive system. Doesn't have a brain. Apparently, doesn't have anything but eye tissue. How how does it come to exist? And why does it look so gross?
Hey, brother,
Especially
have
in
you seen
remastered.
some of those fish in like the deepest parts of the sea? Like those are pretty messed
But
up.
they're messed up, but they have a reproductive system, they have a nervous system, they
Well,
have brain tissue. They're not just an eye, they're not just a fin, they're not just an eyeball floating in the sea, you know?
I don't have anything for you there. I would love to know how how more
How?
ions are
How,
created.
Sway?
Like, you know
How?
what? We already shouted out the stone toad, but I want to shout out. I don't have it right in front. I think it's the venom weed,
Oh, and
like
the stone toads.
the
The red
red weed
tipped.
guys. The
Yeah,
red
yeah,
weed. They're actually not
the
guys.
red
It's just like a
tipped
bunch of
weed.
weeds. But I always thought that was kind of cool, like rolling through them and blasting them or whatever. A little bit more
Yeah.
dangerous.
I
So
liked I like that little like I mean Metroid Prime does this overall as like just a general. There are some creatures that like have a base form, and then just a few of them that have a little bit of a twist,
yeah.
and like you just have like regular like weeds, and you have like the poison tipped ones. You have reapers, you have aqua reapers, you have obviously space pirates and flying pirates and all their variations, but you have some creatures that just have a slight variation here and there. Parasite, ice parasite, whatever it is. Um, which I think is a nice like again goes back to like the biology thing and how like the
Hmm.
different forms of the creatures appear depending on where they are on the planet. So very cool.
Very cool to see how they adapt and evolve as well. So yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about bosses. Let's talk about bosses and
Bunch of bosses here,
bunch of them.
actually. One
Yeah,
boss and a couple sub bosses. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I guess let's start. Let's go backwards. So or not backwards, but let's go chronologically backwards from like the best boss to the least best. So played a beetle, kind of like a it's kind of it's a fine boss for like where it is at the beginning of the game. I like it feels like intense, because you got like the first couple swarms of beetles that come up, and then the plated guy comes, and it's really just about teaching you like how to strafe. But I like it. It's a fun little fight, and he appears in the plaza after you're done with him. So cool little
It
guy.
does. It does. I think when you're talking about like first like memory of playing Metroid Prime Remastered, like I guess aside from just loading up the game and like, oh my god. For me it's taking on all these beetles in this
Mm-hmm.
boss fight because I think the first time I did it I didn't use lock on and I was just like aiming freehand and I'm like, oh, I wish this game had aim assist. This is I'm gonna go back to locking onto things. But yeah, it's a fun battle. It's certainly one of those things that like shows you um how powerful Samus gets over the course of the game. Because at the beginning of the game, like it almost feels like an even match at some points,
Mm-hmm.
like when you first fight the plated beetle, and then later in the game, like it's so beneath you to even engage in combat with this thing that you can
Yeah.
just ignore it as you go by. I love that. Like it all like for me, I towards the end of the game for both plated beetles and regular beetles, I don't even fire at them anymore. I just jump over them, I just keep going, and I'll say hi, like what's up,
Mm-hmm.
nice seeing you. And the plated beetle becomes that like little pal. I love seeing the plated beetle like in the plaza, like, oh, what's up? Like, I don't even fight them, like just, and they're always super aggressive. They don't know what's good, but like, you don't know any better. Like, you're just
Yeah.
a goofy little guy. Yeah, I love the design of the plated beetle, very cool, and the room is a fun one as well because it ends up leading to more things later. But the basic design of the boss battle is room is very simple, but it's a cool little introductory fight, and I think the plated beetle is a really awesome design for a creature. So
Yes.
it
Worth
looks
pointing out the
really
little
cool.
sack on his back when it explodes.
That's what you like about it.
No, I mean, it's just so gross. It's just like,
Oh yeah.
okay,
Oh,
it's oddly
when
like
it's blasted
satisfying.
open.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, absolutely.
So Hive Mecha, another And they're like fairly a lot of the bosses in Chozo Ruins. Well, I guess not a lot, but like two of them use some variation of a unique war wasp, and this is obviously the first one. Kind of like a fun boss. I wouldn't say it's. I think it's probably the weakest of all of them here. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but like for what it is, I think it's like it's kind of okay. It's I think it's more fun if you do it inefficiently, if that makes sense. Like, because what I usually do is just like stand straight and just fire in a line, and like eventually the wasps will fly into my fire, which is like gets the job done, but it's not kind of as fun as like hectically tracking down all the wasps and like shooting them and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of those boss battles that works better when you're not doing it efficiently. Like even with Prime Hack, I would never lock on. Like I would just try to aim. And even in
Yeah,
this, like yeah, you try to do the lineup, then you also try to actually snipe them and get around, jump around a little bit, make it a little more fun for yourself. I agree. I would actually take the Hive Mecha over Incinerator Drone. I think just mostly for like the aesthetic, like the room is awesome, like the
mm,
half like leaned platform and the swampy like poisoned water around it, and then of course the actual totem itself, like with the Chozo like bird mouth openings,
pretty
looks
cool.
very cool. Yeah, I like the Hive Mecha as a boss fight. You know, you can play it as it's kind of like intended, like just stand in place, kind of fire and stuff. It's not super hard, but if you try to play it hectically, it's cool. And in hard mode, you can take some shots. So
Hard
I
mode
definitely like
like
Hive Mecha.
was not hard, but I was just like, oh my god, like these wasps aren't dead yet. I can't believe that I'm still shooting at them. So I
Yeah, I
will
didn't
agree with you
die,
there.
but it gave. Yeah, they took some shots, and you took some shots as well. So
I really like the incinerator drone actually, and I don't know why. I think I just like kind of like the design of it, like
it is a cool
bopping
design.
and two turning and stuff like that, and shooting out fire. It's very simple. There's some more. I think they're barbed wasps in that room, but yeah, I don't know. There's something like charming about it. I feel like it's such a short, like
Charming is a good word for it because it's such a
yeah,
like simple like
he really
robot
is.
design. It's like some kid in like an '80s movie built their own robot, and that's what it looks like. And then they gave it flamethrower hands
Yeah,
and
pretty
whatnot.
much. Yeah, flamethrower hands, like Edward flamethrower hands. So
Yeah,
it's
I
like
like
it's
this boss
fine.
battle. It's fine. I think my problem with it is that it has like, oh, you're supposed to jump over the bottom flamethrower, like you know how it has the angled attack
Yeah,
eventually. So eventually you're supposed to jump over the flame as it shoots low. Okay, fine. But the high attack is too high, so you can just back up. You know, like
yeah.
it should be a little lower and go out farther, so you're forced to morph ball. That's what I feel like the
I think the game
intended
intends for you to do that, but
it intends for you, but you don't.
I don't think
Just played
anyone
it
in the
in.
history of Metroid Prime morph balls to get under
No, but
that.
that's what it should be. It should
Yeah.
be like. I mean, I guess it makes sense because there aren't. I mean, there are situations in this game where you do want to morph ball and get out of the way. Like the Thardus boss battle like comes to mind, but there aren't a lot of
Hmm.
times where I'm like, oh, I need a morph ball to like take cover and like avoid like crouch under stuff like as a crouch equivalent. And I think this boss battle would have been like trying to teach you something you don't really do later, which is probably why it doesn't like force you to morph ball because you don't really like need to do it in the same kind of like scenario. But still,
Yeah.
I wish it kind of did though, because then all in this situation you just have to back up and you don't take any damage. So it's like you just have to
I
jump over.
I think like the way that the boss is laid out, like I'm glad that they don't force you to do that because I think it would have been a lot less fun if like you had to kind of like slow down your pacing, morph, unmorph to in this like the specific layout of this room. If they would have
Yeah.
changed the layout of the room, which they could have done, then I think that could have been like something cool. It actually would have been cool if like there was like you know those like morph ball like the tunnels in Magmore that you're in the rails and like if there has been like a couple levels and maybe you avoid the fire spinning kind of like that that could have been cool but no I think it's
Yeah.
like an inoffensive like short easy
Yeah, it's a
yeah
tutorial boss. It's like it's
yeah
nothing crazy, like, and it has a cool, unique wasp design that you can't miss that scan. That is probably the biggest thing is how two early game bosses have not only unique boss scans but also unique enemy scans
three
that
all three of
you'll
the Chozo
miss.
ones do
Yeah, yeah,
yeah
yeah. So yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah, because Flogger has the Flogger tentacles. So
yeah
that's actually kind of
which
like
is
a
like such a whack item to have to scan like that's clearly a part of Flagra
it's very random and it's also such like a don't know, I just got a knowledge check because it's such an all three are early game scenarios. So if you
Yeah.
like not don't like have you ever been playing Metroid Prime with your first time? Like there's three opportunities in the game that you will miss something you won't be able to get again. That is
Oh yeah.
outside of like the general like boss scans that like you come to expect, you know?
Yeah, I would be flabbergasted if a new player playing Metroid Prime for the first time got
Scan the
three for
tentacles.
three. Like
Yeah.
I would call
I can see
shenanigans
the
on that.
wasps, but the tentacles,
Yeah.
Flogger's tentacle, that one is a BS scan. I don't know who
I
came
don't
up with
even
that
know
one.
about
It's
the
a BS
wasps because
scan.
like there's so many wasps everywhere that it's like these kind of look like the other ones that I've already
Yeah, but
scanned.
like they kind of glow red, and like one of them's
Yeah.
green. Like that one kind of always gave it away to me. I'll agree. The one I think the barbed ones are green ones. I think the Ram War wasp like don't stick out as much against the regular ones, but I thought they did enough. But like I want to say one of them has like a green hue or tint to them that kind of stood out always more to me. And so I
The
always
ones in
like,
the Hive Mecha boss battle definitely do. The one I think the one in the
yeah,
incinerator
maybe I'm
drone
swapping
is
them around.
I don't know that it's that they don't stick out as much, but like you're just kind of focused on avoiding the fire maybe a little bit more. And then, like I think there's a little bit
They've
more downtime in the Hive Mecha fight.
Interesting, because I feel like in the incinerator drum fight, you just back up to avoid the flame at certain points. What else are you gonna do but try to scan something? So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about Flagra. Cause yeah,
Flagra,
that tentacle is definitely
very cool
shenanigans.
boss, very cool boss design. Because you can
I love it.
play, you can play it like you can play it. I think how it's intended to be played, which is you want to like strafe around to get behind each reflecting dish, so you can knock them over. But lately, which I started with Prime Hack, and I then in this most recent playthrough, now we have dual analog controls. I've been doing the strategy of just trying to snipe the dishes from one position across the arena and trying to hit them from all the way across
All right.
and not having to move to them, which I find to be a lot more fun. So I've been enjoying that. I love the design overall, like the radial arena. You're fighting the boss from all angles, which you don't like. You get in other boss battles, like kind of like Thardus and Omega Pirate, but like obviously very pronounced because Flogger can't move, so you're always surrounding it. Really cool design. Obviously, in remastered, Flogger looks so much better.
Mm.
Like the textures, the detail, immaculate. The lighting in the arena, the sun chamber looks immaculate. It looks so cool, and like the big petals of like Flogger's like base flower look incredible. Awesome boss fight. I think it's a really cool, like unique twist, and it's like a more like an easier like starter major because it's like your first major boss of the game once you've landed on Talon 4, you know,
Yeah.
aside from the Piranha Queen, the pirate, the Parasite Queen. Um, the Flogger is like I think that's the last like boss where you kind of have the training wheels on, and then from there
Yeah. I would agree
you
with that.
definitely are thrown into like okay these are kind of real bosses, but Flagra is that last like okay you should know Strafen by now. You should know Strafen by now. Do you? You know, so I like it. Like it's pacing wise in a good spot.
Hmm.
Awesome boss battle. Awesome boss. Really cool character.
I agree. I'm like a Metroid does like a really good job of this in general. I think where like they present some bosses like are just like brawls and it's just you can hit an enemy anywhere and they take damage. Ridley from Super comes to mind. And then you have bosses
Mhm.
like this, which is like a really cool like it's like a puzzle. It's a puzzle boss, you know, like masquerading as a boss. And like I really
Mhm.
love those. Like I really love the Spider Guardian from Metroid Prime Echoes, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and like that's exactly the same thing. It's like a puzzle boss, and so I really like that there's like that diversity of like
Mhm.
Flagra is like the puzzle, like Omega is like the brawl, Metroid Prime maybe a little mix of both. Like so yeah, I think that the boss is very cool. Like the music is awesome, the setting is
The
awesome.
music is sick.
I always go around just because I think that's fun, but maybe I will try sniping next time.
Yeah, and
That seems rewarding if you can hit it.
'cause- yeah, and you still have to go around because you got a boost ball all the way
Yeah.
over to the next, open slot. I'll talk about the music for Flagra when we get to the music
Sure.
section because I do want to talk about that. But yeah, I agree on all those aspects, and
I
yeah,
really
it's
kind
a.
of love like the you know when like Flagra slashes its tentacle
I was
down and like
literally
there's
about to say.
flowers. I love that.
Yes, I love like the flowers that come up, but I just
Yeah.
love like Flagra's like just like almost like attitude, just like get that back down there, like just snapping it back. And there are some times, especially towards the end, where like you have to get like all four of them up, and like you put one up, and Flagra just immediately knocks it back down, which
Hmm.
I've like really fun to then get him right back right where I am. Like, nope, no, I got the upper hand. Yeah, really like the little bit of just like snappiness to Flogra's like animations, and it's so much more pronounced now in remaster. It looks awesome.
You know what the other great thing about Flogger is actually, and last thing before we move on is like there's actual like really cool consequence to like beating him or beating
Yes,
it rather.
it's tied into the story
Yeah.
very well.
And like it makes traversing the Chozo Ruins like significantly easier once he's gone because like all the poison is eradicated. So I always really appreciated that as well.
I there are two things. Number one, I wish Flogger had a bit more of a like a I mean, I don't know, maybe I like bosses that have like a unique mechanic outside of just damage, like the boss or
Mm-hmm.
drop a shield or something like that. And Flogger's really cool because it has two of those. You have not just like the morph ball slots, but obviously the dishes. Part of me wishes there maybe was like like a regular like standard damage phase where you kind of shoot at them. But I like this one where it's all mechanic. It's like you don't really do any direct shooting damage to it. You can like stun it a little bit. I'm pretty sure if you fire up at it, throw a couple missiles at it, you can stun it, which is helpful when it's knocking the dishes down. And I think that's what maybe makes it such like a well-rounded boss battle because you don't need to do that direct damage with the combat, but you can to help yourself complete those mechanics. I wish, now that you just mentioned that, I wish to my second point, I wish other bosses in the game had a more direct story impact once you beat them in that kind of way. Like when you beat Thardus and Phendrana Drifts, nothing about the drifts really changes. You know,
No.
like you can go through the boss room and there's like a Sheegoth there, and like the enemy spawns change, sure, but like you said, like in Chozo Ruins, the water doesn't poison you anymore. That's a huge change. Like everything starts to change up a little bit. Like the water's clear. Like that's a significant change. Phendrana doesn't change. You beat the Omega Pirate. Like
I would argue Omega Pirate. Like yeah, you get the phase on. So that's pretty.
Yeah, I guess that's a big story. I guess I would count that. Yeah. I don't know. I like how it's implemented.
I
with
agree with
Flagra,
what you're saying though. Like I like that.
It changes not just Samus in a way because you get the Various suit when you beat Flogger too, but it changes the environment. I kind of wish it had that element to other bosses. Like okay, the Omega Pirate gives you the Phazon suit, but it doesn't change like the environment. The Phazon Mines itself isn't different afterwards. And I kind of wish like every area had that effect. Like as you're kind of going through the world, you're changing it for the better, you know, which I think only really happens very clearly in Chozo Ruins and not as much in other areas, and I kind of wish it did.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would agree with that. Kind of gives me like Notori vibes almost from Metroid Fusion, the way that like in a similar way, like once that boss is beaten, like a lot of the foliage that's clogging up that sector leaves. So I really like when Metroid does that as well. I agree.
100% agree.
Okay, we don't have to talk about it, but there is just a plethora of items that you get for the first time in here, including you get your first missiles, morph ball, the bombs, charge beam, various suit, wave buster, ice beam, and 3 artifacts that I want to actually. One of them is in Flogger's room. You have to go back and fight guess who, some Chozo ghosts to get them.
Chozo ghosts.
There you
go. I think the Chozo Ruins is the area with the most item pickups in it. I think if you're like in terms of like actual pickups, I think it's the most in terms of overall pickups, and I think it's the most in terms of major item pickups, like that list you just went through. And then I think it's tied for first with Phendrana for most artifacts, because I'm pretty sure Chozo and Phendrana both have 3.
Have 3, yeah. So, I can confirm it's got the most missiles for sure. Like I was doing the guide and I was like, holy smokes! Like there is a ton of
I mean, the main plaza itself has 3 missile expansions and an energy tank, right? Like,
yeah, 4 expansions just right there. So yeah, totally. Okay, let's talk about the music because I actually think
a lot of music in Chozo Ruins as well.
Yeah,
a lot of music. It has the entrance theme. Like the first room that you walk into, literally, the Ruins Plaza theme, the main overall Chozo Ruins theme, the Depths theme, then the Hive Mecha Incinerator Drone theme, the Flagra theme, and then the mini boss, the minor boss theme also appears when you fight Plated Beetle. So there's...
And don't forget the Chozo Ghost theme.
And the Chozo Ghost theme, yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
yeah, it's
7.
A ton of music.
Eight different distinct tracks at least. I
Yeah,
think that's it though. In Chozo
everyone
Ruins.
everyone listening to this is gonna like want to slap me for saying this, but I will say I'm not like as in love with the music of really like any of the Chozo Ruins tracks
Boo.
as I am with like like a Talon or a Phendrana or a. I don't think I actually can in good conscience say Magmore, but I do think that like it's. I think the music here is like very very solid. Like very while you're playing it, it feels like completely appropriate, immersive, and like it sounds awesome. But I do think, at least in my world, like for me, it doesn't have that same kind of, I don't know, listenability quality, if that is that even a word, where like you could just listen to it like by
Yeah.
itself or whatever. Like I could listen to Talon Overworld or Phendrana or like the
Hmm.
Metroid Prime boss or whatever, right? And just be like, oh, I love this. I love listening to this. And I think you need the context of like playing the actual game to appreciate the Chozo Ruins music. That's just my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, and that's my when I said at the top of the show, like I had one thing that I didn't love about Chozo Ruins. That's it. So it's not really that big a deal.
Yeah, it might be unpopular. I think the music in Chozo Ruins is great personally. I think okay, I think your point of there's not a lot of tracks you would just go and listen to on your own personally, I think is valid. That said, I think the main theme for Chozo Ruins is absolutely that track for me. Like that the
Yeah.
because you have the entrance theme, which is like a very kind of minimal foreboding like theme. Then you have the Chozo Ruins Plaza theme, which kind of builds on that more foreboding. You get like those crashes in the background of like I don't know,
Yeah.
like it almost sounds like a gun firing or like metal like this huge clank. Like those are iconic. And then you get the main theme, which takes that and takes that forebodingness, puts it in the background, and puts this like thumping groovy beat on it. Which y'all know that song, like it's awesome. I think we've used it as an intro on the
Oh,
on the
I'm
show
I'm
multiple
sure.
times.
I do want to say too, by the way,
That
that
track is awesome. I could listen to that outside of the game for sure.
my criteria for the music is weird. So like just take that for what it is. Like I think and ideally you want to judge the music by like how it fits in the area while you're playing the
Yeah,
game. So I'm
yeah.
acknowledging that my criteria is definitely a little bit
And
funky.
then and then you have the Hive Mecha theme, like the Incinerator Drum theme, which I think should have been put in Smash Bros. It's like up there with like the Saris battle theme for Metroid Fusion for like some of the best boss battle themes in the whole series. The Flagra theme is so I love the Flagra
The
theme. I
Flogger
want to
theme is
talk about
awesome.
that because
Yes.
it starts off with such a super minimalist like beginning. It has those queasy like wavy synths to it, like wow wow, like it's like it's like these six sounds, and then um you end up getting like these like higher pitched like organy synths coming in, and it builds like this crazy like cacophony at the end, and then it loops back. It's awesome. Love that theme. I think Chozo Ruins has a great amount of music, and I'm gonna do a little Doom commenting here, Doom
Okay.
posting,
Yes.
because the Chozo Ruins I think has the best examples of crossing that line between diegetic and non-diegetic music and sound, because you have these tracks that are very obviously like non-diegetic in terms of like the drum tracks or the synths or whatever, but it incorporates like the sounds of like creatures like chirping in the background, and like these little like flanges and like effects that are like thrown in there that sound like they're really coming from the actual environment, and it
Hmm.
mixes those two things together. I think that like the main theme especially does this incredibly well, and has like those chirps and like little creature like calls like echo in the background
Right.
alongside the actual like instrumental part of it. Works perfectly, and I think it's like like the perfect example of how Metroid Prime weaves those two kinds of music together. I love that about Chozo Ruins, and that stands out so much to me when I think about its music.
Yeah, I think that that's like completely fair. And just to reiterate, I do like the music of Chozo Ruins. It's kind of like it's unfortunate that there's also like Talon and Phendrana in this game, because I think without those tracks, like a lot of the music of Chozo Ruins might have been the best music in the game, but you just have these like incredible tracks that overshadow it a bit, or at least in my world. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's some
the
of the
Flogger theme
tracks
is
are
awesome
really
though.
good. Are really like the bar is so high in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, not all of them are going to necessarily meet it, but I think the main theme definitely does.
Well,
One
I
thing, by
think
the
all
way,
of them, like, I think the goal
go
for
ahead.
all the themes isn't to necessarily do that either, because like there is like
Yeah, that's fair.
that like quiet, creepy theme that like it does sound like really good, like while you're traversing, especially those like tight halls
Yeah.
in Chozo Ruins, like so it
Mhm.
does like add a lot to it, but yeah, I don't know. That was my one critique, but even now that I'm saying it, I feel like it's kind of like a whatever.
You're like, oh, why do I have this opinion?
I will
I'm
say,
wrong.
I love that AM2R used the Chozo Ruins beat for Golden
Mhm.
Temple. So there you
Yeah,
go.
because it's good. It's good. It's iconic, man. Like you're a hater.
I was
You're a
a
hater.
hater. I loved it.
Yeah.
I am still kind of in disbelief that Doom was able to snipe that question in our trivia episode. I thought I had you
I'm
guys
not.
like for sure. I guess I
I'm
should have
not at
known,
all.
but
I'm not at
whatever.
all surprised by that. One more thing before we move on. I think I know if like Fendrana Drifts and maybe Town Overworld this is the case, but like when I think of Fendrana Drifts, I think of like the main theme being like the ambient, slower theme that it is, and then you have like Depths, which is more like groovy and like adventurous, right? It gets you. It wants you to take that next step forward. It wants you to get on the adventure. But in Chozo Ruins, it's swapped around.
Yes.
The depths theme is the ambient, slower, heavier in this case compared to Vendrana, but for Chozo track. And then the main theme is that like bumpiness. And I think like they did that because when you got to the Chozo ruins, they wanted you to already go on that adventure, take all these branching paths and routes and like explore. And then you get to the depths, and you're like, oh, there's a lot like underneath the ruins here. When you get to Fendrana Drifts, the first impact is like the view. So like, of course,
Mm-hmm.
that ambient track makes so much sense. But then as you get further in, you're like, oh, there's so much more to explore here, and that's when that groovy adventurous track kind of kicks in. So I like the little dichotomy there. It's
That's a
interesting how it's swapped around to fit your experience going to each area.
That's a great observation, actually, because I agree. Like, I think the further you get into Chozo Ruins, like it's almost like the more the mystery you're peeling back as you read more of
Yes,
like the
exactly.
Chozo lore, which is like kind of creepy, and you're like, what is the worm? What the Chozo went where? And like so
What is
it
the
does
worm?
seem fitting that you're and then but I think kind of what you said about earlier too at the start of the show is like Findrana is kind of like this long area, and
It
like
is.
when
It's
you go
stretched
to
out.
the edge, it's just like
You're at the edge,
it's like
man.
this is gonna be a trek, and like maybe they give you a
Yeah.
little bit of like jazz to kind of get you
Yeah, to
going, get
like
you
to get
pumped.
you all the way through. Exactly. That's the absolutely. Whereas with Chozo Ruins, you kind of they hit you with that first to give you that like spark of look at all these paths you can take.
Yeah,
Take them.
that's a great
Yeah.
observation. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I want to talk about expansions, and I know you're not much of an expansion guy, but there is a ton of really fun expansions, and I only threw a few in here just because we don't want to talk about all
Well,
of
I
them.
100% in Metroid Prime Remastered twice, so I am now more fit to talk about
Okay.
expansions and whatnot because I've been going for more higher completion these days in my Metroid games. I want to go back to Metroid Dread and 100% that. I've yet to do that.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
Metroid Dread is probably the most fun Metroid game to 100%. Okay, well, okay. So we talked about the expansion in the furnace earlier with like the power bombs and climbing up. Any others that tickle your fancy?
So I mentioned earlier the furnace expansion off of that morph ball encounter, which is cool. The one that always sticks out to me is so in the main plaza, you obviously have the energy tank, you have the missile expansion that is off of the half pipe, but then there's two other ones. The first
Mm-hmm.
one is the one that's in the tree, you super missile, the big knot in the tree.
Right.
And then there's a fourth one, which is across the way on the other side of the plaza on like a little like rooftop or ledge or whatever it is. And I know you're supposed to get there by going through the magma pool training chamber piston tunnel area and you use the grapple point to go across. I've never done that. I've already gotten the expansion by the time I go through those rooms because what I've always done is jumped up to the knot,
Yep.
jumped up, turned midair and hit the grapple and then swang across
Yep.
and then got that. And I did that. I started doing that again when I played remastered. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I do it. I don't need to do
I
it the right way.
actually I for the first time in my life, the first time I played Metroid Prime Remastered, I was like, No, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till I have the grapple beam and like go or whatever it is you need to go through that fiery hall to get there. I was like, I'm just gonna do that
Yeah.
instead of like taking the easy way. But I
Mhm.
completely agree. I do that every single time too. And again, love that room because like various stages of the game, you can come back and like keep on getting rewarded, keep on getting something for your
Yes.
troubles.
Mhm.
I really liked the. I guess it's not like an expansion per se, but we didn't really talk about it as much. But like the Wave Buster is awesome.
Mhm.
With our boys, I forgot their names already, but the dudes that are just crawling in your
The
way.
Oculi or Oculus or
Yeah, Oculi. I think yeah, there we go, Oculi.
the
So
plated puffers are my guys. I don't know.
no, no time
I
for
don't know how
them.
you don't. Puffers are a cool organism. I don't know.
No.
I really want to talk more about that. Maybe that's an episode I really want to do. Biology of Talon 4. Let's just do a whole. Let's do a. We need to do like a National Geographic on Metroid Prime, and we do like we capture in-game footage and then do like a voiceover, like Nat
Who has a
Geo
voice silky
style.
enough for that though? I don't. Maybe Kiwi. We could talk to our pal Kiwi about it.
Any of our listeners have a similar a
Yeah.
David Attenborough type voice, let us know and
Audition
get in touch with
over
us.
in
Get
the
in touch
Omega
with us. We'll do
Metroid
a
Discord.
special. Well, I'm being dead ass. If you have a good narration voice and you listen to the show and you want to be on an episode and do voiceover work, we will do a Nat Geo style Metroid Geo episode on a documentary on Talon 4's biology, and maybe you could be the narrator. Hit me up.
I've got a complete side story here, like nothing to do with anything. But I was
Okay.
watching this documentary on Netflix, and I'm desperately trying to look up what it's called. But it was like a National Geographic style like show, but like about made up planets. So it showed like aliens on
Oh,
those
I know what you're
planets.
talking
Do you know
about. I know what you're talking
what is
about.
that show
Yeah.
called?
Uh
Ah,
I don't know. I know what you're talking about though. It was on like Animal Planet. I feel like
yeah,
I loved documentaries like those. There was a favorite of mine.
Alien Worlds. You should
Okay,
check that out. It's kind of like half and half. They make up a creature and then they kind of base its biology on like similar Earth creatures. It's very interesting. I was loving it.
a similar one. This was one of my favorites growing up as a kid. There was a documentary that did it. It was as if dragons really existed in history,
Oh,
and like they like uncovered dragon like fossils, and they talked about like, oh, this was how like the European dragon was. It had four legs, and like this dragon over here, like the arms were part of the wings, and blah blah blah. And you had like more serpentine kind of like dragon from this area, and that always fascinated me. I want
is
to
isn't it wild to think that like dragons are like a mythical creature that like didn't really exist? It feels like you know everything about like a dragon, like you know
yeah.
everything, and like they never existed, which is
They never
wild to me.
existed.
Okay,
Oh, by the way, that documentary was called "Dragons: A Fantasy Made Real" or "The Last Dragon."
The
Apparently, it only has
Last
six point.
Dragon.
Apparently, it only has 6.5 stars on IMDb. I liked it, so
This kind of seems
I
like
don't
it
know.
might be on Tubi. I'm gonna look for that later.
It might be. It
Shout
might
out to
be.
Tubi. Yeah, I don't know. I like the Wave Buster. Really fun, really awesome. 60 missiles, which if you're getting it when I think most of us get it, is like a pretty big chunk, if not almost all of your missiles. So you gotta kind of be precise with those shots. So I really love that expansion. One that I don't think a lot of people talk about is the expansion in the vault, which is, I think, for a lot of people, it was for me, the first instance of bomb jumping in 3D, like, ever. So it's very, very simple puzzle. Like there's three bomb locks and they're in a diagonal line, and you can do one and then the second, and then you gotta nail a bomb jump for the third. So I always remember like feeling very, very accomplished when I was able to pull that
Mhm.
off as a kid. And even now, like I actually think the spring ball is like the most underrated Metro or like item in Metroid. Like I
Makes
love
that puzzle
having a
real
spring
easy.
ball. It really does. But like
Yeah.
to me, it still feels like rewarding. Like even just the same. So I really love that one.
Yeah, that room to me always just was iconic because of like the layout. It
It's
was
just a cool
very,
room. Yeah.
very, very cool room. But yeah, that one is definitely a cool expansion. I like the original when I didn't have the spring jump, but I'm totally cool with how it is now. And yeah, that's definitely an iconic one for me. And I think the Wave Buster is also a cool pickup because I mean that area you have the Wave Buster and then you have the um one of the artifacts I think in there as well.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah. At the
time it
very
right,
bottom.
you don't go in there until you get the gravity suit, and then you just get both at the same time. You grab the Wave Buster and the artifact, and you never have to go back there ever again because it's completely out of the way because it's through the Ruin Shrine or Shrine. It doesn't go anywhere else. So, um, yeah,
I,
definitely.
I'm
A
always
cool room.
greedy, and I go like right away
Oh,
to
me
get the
too.
wave
I'll
busters.
go back and forth. I do not care. But if you're trying to be efficient, I'm assuming that's not the way to go about it.
Okay, there's one more that I want to shout out, not because I think it's great, but because I think it's like the most insane expansion in this game, and it's super easy. So it's located in the training chamber access. So the room immediately, I think it's after the training chamber.
I know what
It'll,
you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
dude,
Because it doesn't require anything actually.
no, it requires a morph ball.
It
I
does.
I kid you not. I was looking for this for like forever. I had one missile expansion left. I was like, where the hell is this thing? And I eventually, as I was writing our own guide, and I was like, I gotta look at the map. And so I looked at the
Mhm.
map on OmegaMetroid.com, and I was like, it says it's here. Where is it? And I'm power bombing. I'm X-raying. I'm doing like all this stuff. And I was like, where is this expansion? And like I can't even tell you how hard I face palmed when I was like, oh my god, you roll it. I completely forgot about this, and I felt like such a goof. Like, just so like there's a morph ball tunnel hidden behind like a tree,
Yeah.
and you can't really see it with
It's a
any
bunch of
other
leaves.
visors. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just gotta know that
Just kind
it's
of have to
there.
know, yeah. Just kind
Yeah.
of like feel the wall, like, oh, there's a passageway this way behind this bunch
Oh
of
my
leaves.
god.
I think
I
it's such a good troll too because it's like a later game
yeah.
expansion that requires nothing, just a morph ball, and it's just like, yeah, don't worry about needing a super missile or wave, whatever. Like, just you just roll over and grab it. That's one of the ones where I feel like they just like threw it in at the end, and
Oh.
no puzzle
I was
needed,
so
just go and
embarrassed. I
grab
was
it.
like looking over. I'm like, no one's watching me, right? Like playing right now. Like I'm just gonna say I'm gonna
God was
Photoshop like half
watching.
an hour off my time at the end of this
Yeah.
game.
I that one I always remember because it's tied to the one I mentioned originally, the one where you can get in the plaza. Because
Yes.
when you go through that access, 2 rooms later, you're back in the plaza in that position to grab that expansion. And every time for me now, I get the training chamber access one that you just described behind the tree, and then I end up back in the plaza and I look at where I already went to for the expansion. I'm like, oh, well, I don't have to grapple over there because I already did this. So sometimes I feel like I should leave it so I have that extra reward there when I get through training chamber access. But
Oh
I'll
my
probably never
god.
do that. I
Yeah,
don't have the patience.
it was so horrible. I couldn't believe it when I finally got there. I was so embarrassed. So yeah, a bunch of other fun expansions, but those are the ones that stuck out to me. And that's the end of my list of notes and things to talk about for the Chozo Ruins.
Yeah,
I think we've done this area justice, and like I said at the top of the show, like I think that it certainly has elevated itself as an area for me.
elevated is
Yeah.
so good, especially it's such a good way to put it, especially Prime Remastered. It shows up the lighting
Oh.
perfectly, the
Mm.
added like texture to like the brickwork and the dust and the sand and the glow of like the hives. Really, it's such an area that like this and like Phasing Minds that like the Phasing Minds look drab in the original, like no question, and it got a
Yeah.
nice glow up. But like the Chozo Ruins are like they looked good in the original, but like it's a sandy, like deserted kind of area. It's not like lush like Town Overworld or just like so like dynamic,
Beautiful,
like
like yeah.
beautiful like Fendrada Drifts, or like the like just the mesmerizing nature of like Magmore Caverns, and even that has like nice new texture for the rocks. But like Chozo Ruins,
Mm.
I think is already in such a good balance of like doesn't need that like lushness, and like it has its own kind of beauty, and remastered really, like you said, elevates that. The lighting looks incredible, and it just like it feels like everything glows, and you can feel like almost like the warmth and like the sun beating down on you, and yeah, it looks amazing. I love
Spectacular.
how the Chozo Ruins is good. Yeah, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I like that we delved a little bit into the differences between the original and this one, but I think just in general, the core foundation of the Chozo Ruins version to version is so good. We could just talk about it across the board, you know?
Yeah, like a spectacular area. I agree. Like I think a couple weeks ago we said that the phase on mines got the best glow up, and I think it did. But like Chozo, like I thought it looked awesome before. It just looks incredible now. It looks just
Mm-hmm.
so awesome, and yeah, just You know, like I said, like I think for me, maybe I underestimated how much I liked the Chozo Ruins, but going through it again in HD, just kind of taking my time, and what an area, just absolutely breathtaking. So yeah, there we go. That's another mapping Metroid in the books, and we're gonna run out of Metroid Prime areas pretty soon. I think we only got 2 left.
Well, what have we done? So we've done Talon, we've
We've
done
done Talon, we've
Fendrana,
done
we just did
Findrana,
Chozo,
Chozo. So we got Phase on Mines and Magmore Caverns.
and Impact Crater.
Well, that might be a
Impact Crater,
stretch.
bro. We could
Yeah,
do a little mapping mini
that would
on
actually be a
Impact
fun
Crater.
mapping Metroid to do like a medley of all like the final areas and stuff like that. I guess we've kind of done that before, ranking final areas, but hey, you know, it's kind of
We can do that.
be
We could
neat.
do that. Are
Um,
we on last words here, real quick?
yeah, shoot.
Okay. I just had a couple things I wanted to mention, which I didn't mention at the top of the show. But first, I just wanted to say thanks to Doom for joining me on the mailbag episode last week. We had a lot of fun with that, and we had a great stretch of Metroid Prime content. I wanted to also mention that this past month, February, was our second best performing month of the show since October of 2021. We tweeted about it, but incredible. Y'all like Metroid Prime because we popped like so many new listeners. Thank you. If this is one of your first episodes listening to the show, thank you so much for joining us.
Hell yeah. To add to
Got a lot of
that,
new
this
listeners, a
was
lot
the
of new
best month
followers.
for
Yeah.
the website too, like
Yeah.
by a lot.
Really?
So
Okay, sweet. Yeah,
thank
nice.
you.
We love to have y'all. It's awesome. A couple other things from me. I've been enjoying the new Destiny 2 expansion, which I've been having a lot of fun with. So I've been playing that. Any Valorant fans out there? The VCT lock-in tournament, I watched that this past weekend. The grand finals between Fnatic and Loud was absolutely fantastic. That best of 5, I think, is one of the best of 5s in Valorant history. Definitely check it out if you haven't. And if you're not even a Valorant fan, you like FPS games, esports, I don't know if you don't even like any of that stuff, check it out. Fnatic and Loud, the VCT lock-in grand finals, an absolutely crazy good, exciting, awesome set. And then finally, I just received in the past couple of days my physical copy of
Oh,
Metroid Prime
very
Remastered.
nice.
I have
Very
received it,
nice.
even though I've already beaten it digitally 3 times before I've gotten this. I am happily a proud owner of Metroid Prime Remastered. I don't know if I'm going to open it. Do I keep it sealed, or do I open
This
it and
is
put that little card in my holder with all my other physical games? I don't know.
this is the thing. I would open it because when I collect, I'm not like much of a sealed collector. I just like to have the case.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is cheaper. You could almost do.
I mean, part of me feels like I could just buy another one and have one open and one
That's
on not open. That's
exactly,
kind of like
you
I think
know?
I think that's what I end up doing here.
It's
So
a cheaper game. So
it's a cheaper game. I bought how many copies of Dread? I mean, I got to buy more copies of Prime Remastered. I'm a fake Prime fan. So
yeah,
but that's all I
yeah.
got. Those are my updates. And yeah, I'm glad we got to do this mapping Metroid. And it was I'm glad to have you back on the show.
Yeah,
Talk some
yeah,
more Metroid.
and thank you both for doing such an awesome job last week. I haven't had a chance to actually listen to the episode yet. Usually I do when I'm editing, but you know what? I'm gonna listen to it tomorrow. Give me something to do to pass the hours at work. So I was sad that I had to miss it. Let's put it that way. But yeah, so there we go. Chozo Ruins, awesome area. Probably not a surprise to anybody, but we would love if you have any thoughts about the Chozo Ruins, let us know. Join our Discord. This Discord has been popping. We've had so many new people. It's been so awesome to meet all of you guys and get to interact a little bit more personally and one-on-one and just in the group and stuff like that. So come and join our Discord. We're all Metroid fans, so we love talk about Metroid. So come and hang out with us. And then if you really, really want to take your fandom to the next level, we've got a Patreon where there's some bonus shows. And actually, we're starting a new Patreon series like pretty soon that it's going to be. I don't know if I want to reveal it actually yet. I'm going to do a big post yet, but it's going to be something that's not that dissimilar from what we just talked about with Chozo Ruins here. So it's going to be fun, and there's a ton of other different series and shows and stuff like that you can check out. So yeah, all right. Well, we are going to get out of here, but thank you all for listening. Of course, check us out over on Twitter, which hey, we just hit 2,000 followers. Awesome, good job, Dak.
Yes. Yeah. Well, not yes. Team effort.
Definitely, and Yeah, definitely a team effort, but you know, a lot of love goes into that from your end. So I'm giving you the pat on the back since you're here.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
At Omega Metroid Pod, at Spiteri316, at Dax City _ check us out on OmegaMetroid.com, and you know, check us out wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe. I read all of our reviews lately, a lot of 5-star reviews. I don't read them as much as I should, but I do see them. I do appreciate them. They are valued. Thank you to everybody that takes the time to do that. Okay, that's it. That's all the plug-in. We're out of here. We will see you guys back here next week. Till then, Metroid fans, take care.